The Blushing Brides played Barrymore's last night. Should we be blushing at the top caliber acts nightclub owners bring to Ottawa, even though the top clubs make little money off live acts like Dr. John?
Yeah, because who wants to see some dead musicians play? You gotta get into live music, man.
Ottawa gets good live music, but does Ottawa want live music? Does Ottawa deserve big-name acts, even though people seem unwilling to pay top dollar for top entertainment? We'll talk with musicians, the club owners, and music critics coming up on Nightline Focus. But first, our top story. Canadian aviation safety experts are still looking for the cause of today's crash of a twin-engine cargo plane near Yvonne, George Thorogood, and U2. They've all played here in Ottawa, not in some 30,000-seat stadium, but in the clubs, up close and live. Yet keeping a rock and roll club alive in Ottawa is betting against the odds. So in a city that consistently offers the best in live music, why aren't more people going out to see it? Sean Poulter has this report.
9 o'clock tonight, and nightclubs like Pepper's are already starting to hop to the beat of recorded music. There are some great live bands playing all over the city tonight, but these people won't see them.
Come into Pepper's for free, and if you go to see a live band, it can cost you, $8, $10, $15, and it's just the price. You have a good time at a cheap price.
There's no choice selection in Ottawa. Unfortunate.
Well, it's a great place to be, lots of people to meet.
What's happening to the live music scene in Ottawa? In a city where rock and roll clubs quickly wither and die, success stories are hard to find. Clubs like Barrymore's are the lucky ones. Barrymore's is celebrating 10 years as a survivor on the Ottawa music scene, and it was fitting that their birthday party was hosted by the Blushing Brides. The band has belted out the music of the Rolling Stones here for 58 shows, and it's cover bands like the Brides which bring in the crowds. It hasn't been an easy decade for Barrymore's. Behind those office walls covered with rock and roll greats, there's been a lot of unknowns playing to meager crowds.
We've had our ups and downs. It's been a long, hard haul. I think if we've made the 10 years, we should be okay.
I personally believe that every person should go out and get a dose of live music at least once a month. It does great things for you. It makes you feel good.
When he's not hosting his jazz and blues show on Shea FM, Brian Murphy spends his time checking out the club scene.
There are great musicians out there. There's some terrific music being played in the clubs, both by local and out-of-town musicians. Yes, the music is there. Unfortunately, not enough people support the scene.
Dance clubs and halls seem to have little trouble attracting the late-night crowd. But why are DJs and records still winning out over the raw energy of a live band?
Who wants to see some dead musicians play? You gotta get into live music, man.
Dr. John, the Night Tripper, is a music legend. Last night, fans of the Doctor paid $15 to catch his show at the Rainbow Bistro. The New Orleans blues man is no stranger to Ottawa. He's been playing here since the 60s. And even if Ottawa doesn't have a huge rock and roll crowd, he says the ones that come out have soul.
It reminds me of New Orleans a lot, because people gets down and parties, man, and when they not there shaking their you-know-whats and doing what they want to do, that makes me feel like playing more. It's like certain cities got that thing about it. New Orleans one right here is one of them. I like that.
It's local clubs where bands hone their talents, and some go on to become superstars. Up-and-coming groups like Ottawa's Shake the Ghost first got their start in small clubs. Canadian rocker Bryan Adams once played to a half-empty bar here. But if that hard core of club support doesn't grow, we may only appreciate what we have after it's gone. Sean Poulter, CJOH News.
Does Ottawa get better nightclub entertainment than it deserves? That's our Nightline Focus tonight. Joining me now in studio, three men who have all the knowledge needed about Ottawa's nightclub scene. Gord Rhodes, who owns Barrymore's on Bank Street. Ron Knowles, who owns the Rainbow Bistro on the Market. And Ottawa Citizen nightclub reviewer Greg Barr. Gentlemen, in a word, does Ottawa get better nightclub entertainment than it deserves? Gord?
I think so.
Ron?
I'd have to agree with that.
Greg?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Let's look at the whys, why that is. Gord, Barrymore's has just celebrated its 10th anniversary. Has it been a struggle keeping a live music nightclub around that long in this city?
seems like more like 100 years.
Why is that?
Well, it's hard to get the people of Ottawa to come and see shows, I'll tell you.
Is Ottawa stingy? Is Ottawa dull? Is Ottawa boring?
You got to prove to them who's playing before they'll come out, you know? It's really hard to get them to come out and take a chance in seeing somebody.
But we've heard some of the names who've appeared at live bars in Ottawa. I mean, they're big names. Why should you have to sell people on the names you bring in, right?
Well, I think it's the fact of the matter is there hasn't been a lot of live music bars over a long period of time competing, which tends to get more people. And I think Barrymore's carried it for a long period of time. We've been around now 4 years, and you have to almost prove to people, as Gordy said, that this is a good band, and then it becomes trendy, so then everybody comes out. It's like, my example would be Buckwheat Zydeco. When Buckwheat Zydeco was on television on David Letterman, all of a sudden, he's a hit.
Automatic start.
And, you know, I've had bands in Furnace Arsenal is just as good, if not better, Zydeco band. Nobody came. So it's a question that really you have to look at from a long-term point of view, and the more clubs that are in town that are playing live music are turning people on to more live music, so it gets them out more.
All right. Greg Barr, stand by if you would. We'll take a short commercial break, and we'll be back after this break, again with our Nightline focus. Does Ottawa get better nightclub entertainment than it deserves? Our focus is, does Ottawa get better nightclub entertainment than it deserves? Greg Barr is a nightclub reviewer for the Ottawa Citizen. Greg, what do you see as the problem? Why don't people come out to see live music in this city?
Well, I think it's sort of a chain reaction thing. There's always certain types of people who will want to see a certain type of act. If they want to see a blues act, they're going to want to go to a certain kind of club to see that. And because, as Ron said, there hasn't been that much of a focus over a long period of time, they're going to sit back and play couch potatoes rather than, you know, get out and see what's going on.
All right, that leads me to ask this question for anybody who wants to take a shot at it. Ottawa's a great place to live, raise a family, lots of parks, lots of green spaces, nice and clean. Would we be a lot better off in terms of the music scene if we were a blue-collar town and not briefcases and cuffed shirts?
Absolutely. There's no industry in the city of Ottawa. In places where there are big nightclubs like, say, Lulu's in Kitchener, they've got shift work, like 3 shifts a day. I mean, that makes a big difference, you know, having industry in your town, as opposed to everybody in this town seems to work from 7 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, and they go home early at night, and, unless it's all, of course.
Yeah. Does that make us boring when it comes to this kind of music?
No, I think the major problem with this city is the lack of a proper transit system. If you go to Toronto, any other major city in the world, there's a transit system that runs after hours. I have waitresses that have to leave at 12:30 to catch a bus to go home. I mean, you know, my gosh, this is the 80s. I mean, we can't have a bus service that takes people to Canada.
And drinking and driving.
And the drinking and driving thing, you know. I mean, you know, the drinking and driving, it's good that the police have monitored and cut it down and that sort of thing, but I mean, there's no alternative to it. They didn't put on extra taxis. They didn't put a proper transit system on to help us out. So I think that really hurts. You know, I think in Toronto, they get a lot of blue collar, they get a lot of white collar that goes out. So I don't think it's really, that's the major problem. I think Ottawa, in its own, why go through all the hassle of going downtown and then, you know, have to go home and drive, and you can't have too many drinks. So.
Yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say that another thing that's changed the face of the way people look at going out for entertainment for live music at bars is the fact that the bands themselves have changed the way that they want to present their shows. The let's play 3 45-minute sets starting early in the evening is a thing of the past. Many of the big name acts that come into town will not go on stage until 11 o'clock at night. And if you want to go out to a bar, you're going to have to be there at 8 o'clock, 8:30, just to get a seat and wait, you know, perhaps through an opening act, maybe not. And then you're still going to get out of there at 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Do people complain about the price of tickets? I mean, to see some of these top names, we live in one of the most affluent cities in the country. Surely people will pay $15 to see Dr. John.
Well, I had a lot of people complaining last night, and I would have just loved to trade with them and say, okay, you pay the band, and I'll just come in and drink tonight, because I lose on those kind of shows. Very seldom do I make on a show that's, I've got a small club, so I have a little bit more of a trouble breaking even on it, but it's expensive to get the good acts in. I mix it up a lot. I bring in a lot of local talent, a lot of bands from Toronto and that, but on most of the big shows I lose money.
Gord, on any given night, how many nights of the week would you lose money?
We do about 300 shows a year, and about 20%, 15 to 20% we're at capacity. So the rest of those shows, I'm not saying we're losing money, but
Yeah.
we're not full. And
This notion that you run a live nightclub in Ottawa, you must be laughing all the way to the bank. If you even have reason to go to the bank, you may be laughing in a lot of cases.
well, sometimes the odd time you see somebody at Barrymore's repeatedly, it seems to be only the nights that the place is really busy because there's something very special going on. So they just assume every time I'm there, the place is full, so it's full all the time. That's not true.
What about the crowd that does go, Greg? Dr. John, we heard him say that it's like New Orleans. You know, when he sees people out there moving and shaking, he likes that kind of thing. You know, are the people that do go, are they, you know, the people that like?
Well, I think the people that were at that show last night were people who were very familiar with Dr. John's music. I mean, they were there, you know, many of them were singing along, they knew the words, they were ready for that kind of music. There's a certain type of crowd that are going to go to see a big name act at the Rainbow, say, because they know they're blues fans and they're going to get that kind of music, so they will go there anyway.
All right. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming in tonight. Appreciate it. Nightline is back after this break.